YouTube may be absolutely jam-packed with short rib and polenta or mashed potato videos. And don't get me wrong, it is a delicious combination. But short ribs can be so much more. So today I'm making a tangy, sticky, braised short rib with some familiar flavors and some less familiar flavors that comes together into a perfectly balanced and delicious braise. We're also making a 4-ingredient charred pineapple and chili sauce that really brings these ribs to the next level, as well as simple blistered shishitos with Thai basil. So let's jump right into this rib. Any great braise has the dry aromats and the wet braising liquid, and both should be complementary and well balanced. But short ribs, especially among all of the great braising cuts, have a notable amount of fat, which means that to balance against them, you can bring a lot of bright, high acid and sweet flavors. So I combined 200 grams of red wine, 300 grams of chicken stock, 125 grams of rice vinegar, and 75 grams of lime juice with 30 grams of honey and 10 grams of Nam Pla. This is the braising liquid, and it is unusually bright and punchy, but when it's combined with the sweetness and aroma from the dry as well as the fat from the rib, it's going to glaze down into a perfect balance of flavors. For the dry aromats, we're taking half of a sweet onion, peeling it and slicing it thin, about 2 stalks of fennel tops chopped up, 1 head of garlic split in half, a nice chunk of ginger, a handful of thyme, and I also took a whole bunch of Thai basil and picked all of the leaves off, which we're going to use in just a little bit, but the stems, which are also incredibly aromatic, will go into the braise. The short ribs themselves, I seasoned directly on the butcher paper heavily with kosher salt all the way around, as well as dusting them with ground star anise. One of the best things about braising is how front-loaded it is. Once you've gathered all of these ingredients, most of your work is done. So to finish up the cook, get a pan nice and hot and sear the meat over high heat with neutral oil. It's important to get a nice dark color on all of the sides because all of this delicious deep Maillard and the toasted, extremely aromatic star anise is going to cook into the sauce, as well as get the meat itself tasting delicious. And because we don't need to worry about cooking the steak internally to any specific temperature, you can turn the heat down a little bit if it's getting too smoky, and just take your time and roll these around until they look absolutely beautiful. Once they're done, turn the heat off and pour all of the fat out. Then lay the ribs with the bone side down, scatter the onions, the fennel, the garlic, Thai basil, thyme, and ginger into the pan, and pour all of the wet ingredients over the ribs. Then add enough water so the ribs are covered about 2/3 of the way up. The exact amount is going to change depending on what size pan you're using. Bring everything up to a simmer, throw a lid on, and put it into a preheated 350-degree oven. And kick your feet up, maybe have a glass of wine, and enjoy the smells coming out of your oven. I cooked them for 3 hours with the lid on, and then I took the lid off for the last 30 minutes to start concentrating all of the flavors and to begin reducing the cooking liquid into the glaze. This is a great moment to work on the pineapple sauce, and the recipe could not be more simple. 1 small pineapple, 1 Thai bird chili, half a bunch of cilantro, and 1 lime. Start by cutting the ends off of the pineapple and then use your knife to cut the skin off. Cut slices off of each side and you'll be left with just the core, which you can discard. Take a skillet or sheet tray and lay the pineapple slices out. If you don't have room for the whole pineapple, that is fine, because what we're really trying to do is get some nice dark caramelization on these slices, and any leftover pieces that don't fit and are raw can just be thrown right into the salsa. Add the Thai chili into the pan, and right on time, my ribs were done. So I pulled them out of the oven, switched it to broil, and threw the pineapple slices under the broiler until they're a very dark, almost burned color on only one side. For me, that took about 10 minutes. Once they're out, let them cool for a few minutes while you work on finishing the ribs. This is like a witch's brew of incredible smells. And if you'd like, you can take these ribs out and just pour some of the jus over the top, and I promise they will be delicious. But much more so if you do these finishing touches. Take the ribs out of the liquid and pull the bones out. Then strain the sauce, and then you can ladle the fat off the top, or if you have time, throw it into your fridge or in a bowl of ice, or both if you're in a rush. And the fat cap will solidify on top, then you can easily scoop it out. All of the meat on this rib is fully edible, but there's a lot of gelatinized collagen on the bottom, which personally I trim off. Then pour the sauce back into your pan along with the ribs and cook it over high heat for 10 or 15 minutes until the glaze is very thick. While that's working, I got out my food processor and tossed the charred pineapple and chili into it along with the juice of 1 lime and a tablespoon of salt. Then I turned the machine on and pulsed everything up very thoroughly, and at the very end tossed in half a bunch of cilantro to give it a couple of pulses just to chop up the herbs. And this sauce is absolutely delicious. Sweet, sour, with a little bit of that background char. It's a surprisingly subtle sauce that is not only going to taste incredible with these ribs, but also would work great for just about any protein you'd like. I also grabbed my pineapple pan, wiped it out, and got it very hot. While I took a big handful of shishito peppers, threw them into a bowl along with just a very light coating of neutral oil and salt, which I tossed in. Then dropped them directly into the hot skillet, and don't touch them for a couple of minutes before you give them a good stir, and repeat this waiting, stirring a few times until the shishitos are looking beautiful and blistered. Then turn the heat off and toss in the entire bunch of Thai basil leaves you saved from earlier. I could eat these things every single day. This sauce is fully reduced and is glazing the ribs up perfectly. It's hard to describe the punchy, bright flavors that this dish has. One of the more interesting things to me about flavor construction at some of the best restaurants in the world is that all of the components are designed to work in harmony, which sometimes leads to individual parts that are possibly slightly more bright or fatty or whatever than the others, but when everything is eaten together, it is in perfect balance, and the flavors can truly be life-changing. And for me personally, this type of deep, tangy braised short rib was literally life-changing because it was very similar to the dish I ate when I was 17 that made me decide I wanted to go work in a restaurant. So beyond being incredibly delicious, I do have a soft spot for them. But anyway, that is all for me on this one. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon.